Hi, my name is Katie Schuler. I'm a marketing program specialist here at Time4Learning. I'm also a longtime homeschooling mom. My oldest son, Bailey, used Time4Learning from second grade all the way through high school, and he graduated from our homeschool in 2017. My youngest son, Braden, has been thriving with Time4Learning since preschool, and he's currently in 11th grade. Today, I have Jenna joining me. She's a certified teacher from East Texas who's currently homeschooling her son using Time4Learning. Jenna has volunteered to share her family's homeschooling story and provide some helpful advice for other parents and guardians. If you enjoy this interview, please subscribe to our channel and like us on social media to see more fun episodes of Tales from the Homeschool Front. Hi, Jenna. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Katie.
Thank you. So we're just going to start off. I would love it if you would just give a brief introduction about yourself and who you homeschool, and then we'll get started with our questions after that.
That sounds good. My name is Jenna, and I homeschool a 4-year-old named Aiden, and he is on the kindergarten level in Time4Learning.
Awesome. So that's a fun age. I love it. So many hands-on. I love so many light bulb moments. I think that's my favorite thing. I homeschool also. I've been homeschooling a while though. My youngest is 11th grade. But
Wow.
kindergarten, preschool and kindergarten, early elementary, I think the light bulb moments were some of the most amazing things that we experience as a family when a child is learning something for the first time and seeing that light bulb go off in their head and their eyes and knowing that they're learning and they're recognizing things. I love those ages. So tell us a bit about your decision to homeschool your son.
Well, originally, I never thought I would have the opportunity to homeschool. I was a public educator, and so I thought, well, my son will continue in public education. Well, it came to October 2020, and my son's local school district let us know, and they gave us a week, to make this decision that they were going to quit their remote learning program. So they decided to discontinue that and give all the parents in the remote learning program a week's notice. And so they gave us the choice to go to a different public school, to homeschool, or to go join a online virtual public academy. And my son, he's, pre-K kindergarten level. So I was like, no, I'm not going to change him to a different public school. And they discontinued the remote program. He's not even old enough for the virtual academies. They start at 3rd grade in the state of Texas. So I decided to homeschool. So I looked up information about homeschooling in Texas. And since my son enjoys watching videos and doing activities on his iPad and on his tablet, I decided that Time4Learning would be a good fit for him. We sampled the curriculum a few days before the big switch from his remote schooling to Time4Learning, and we've been with Time4Learning ever since.
Nice. I love that. So tell us a little bit about why you felt Time4Learning would be a good fit for Aiden.
For Aiden, he is very visual. He loves learning things visually and auditorily. And so for him, he really enjoyed how interactive Time4Learning is. So he enjoys the videos and getting to do like the drag and drop activities. And so it's very hands-on for him. And so I never thought that Aiden would be drawn more to that. Because usually, he may be more, I thought he'd be more pencil paper. And I thought about that homeschool route, but then I decided, no, his fit is more using videos and using technology. And to me, technology is the way of the future. And I want to prepare him, for any way that he's going to go when he's older.
Great. Well, I mean, and when you know, I mean, and the really neat thing about homeschooling is the best way that they learn can kind of evolve and change over time. So he's super interested in all things technology right now. You may find later in, as he gets a little bit older, he's ready to kind of integrate more of those pencil and paper kind of textbook things, and you can mix and match. And that's one of the beautiful things about homeschooling is the flexibility that you get to have control over all of that. How do you manage your day between your work and Aiden's education?
Well, it can be hard at times because I work from home as a virtual teacher, and so I have students that I manage on my virtual roster, and I'm also homeschooling Aiden at the same time. So there are many days where I'm working on my computer and Aiden is working on his Time for Learning right next to me on the couch, and I like that because I'll be working and then I'll take a break, and help start his next segment, and then he gets to work. I mean, he gets to work pretty independently as a 4-year-old because there are, read to me options. Even when you're doing the assessments, he knows to push the sound button and it reads it to him, which is awesome, especially as a working parent and as a single parent. I mean, there's no other person in the household to educate Aiden. And so with having that from Time to Learning, I mean, he's pretty independent on it right now. The only thing where he's not independent is choosing which lesson to go to. And that's where mama assistance comes in, of course.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense at that age, but that independence is so important right now. It's so encouraging for them to know that, they get to do this on their own.
Mhm.
I mean, and that independence is good for mom too, because like you said, it gives you the opportunity to take care of what you need, knowing that he's, got that covered.
He can even tell on the assessments at the end. He tells me, Mama, I got a 4 out of 5. I got a 5 out of 5. I mean,
Yay.
he's even excited when he gets a 2 out of 5. And I know what that means. Usually for us, if he gets lower than a 4 out of 5, then I'll have him redo the assessment just so I make sure he knows what he knows. But he's able to tell me, what he's gotten on his assessments, and he's so excited about that.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned that the 2 out of 5 and his excitement, because that, again, so many things about homeschooling that can kind of build kids up. That's another one of those things where, in a classroom setting, excuse me, he may not be made to feel like 2 out of 5 is something that he should be excited about. But I look at it as you got 2 out of 5, which means, it's better than 1 out of 5 and better than none out of 5. So I
Yes.
love that he can still be excited about that, even if you have to encourage him to do it again, or, to pay a little bit more attention or to refocus. It's nice to hear that, he maintains that kind of love of learning. So I'm glad that you shared that. How do you incorporate real life lessons into what Aiden is learning on Time for Learning?
Well, currently, in the past week, we've been in the money lesson in the kindergarten, and we could have just gone out and just bought some play money. However, what Mama has at the house is real money, so we took out all of our coins and our pennies, our nickels, our dimes, and our quarters, and I wanted to integrate that with Aiden's learning. And so, when Time for Learning was teaching him how to count his pennies and how to count his nickels, then we were getting out the pennies, we were getting out the nickels. I've also started, Aiden was interested in buying toys on his own versus waiting for, Christmas and for his birthday and everything and for a holiday to get a toy. He wanted to buy his own toys. And so we've been using, coins to teach them how to save money. And so we've really branched off from our Time for Learning, lesson about money to money in the house and how you have to save.
That's a great life lesson, though. It's fun at that age because you get to play with money. There's no real, like I mean, my 16-year-old, he's not going to get that excited about quarters anymore. But at, Aiden's age, money is money. So it's fun, and it's a teaching strategy. But I love that life skill that you're incorporating for kind of understanding what it means to save and how long it can take to save up for
Mm,
specific purchases. It's nice to know, yes, you can get 25 cents on that kind of scale. You could spend 10 cents. How long is it going to take you to get another 25 cents? So
mm.
that's great.
He's
Do you
learned
find that?
that it takes a lot longer to save for a $30 toy than like a $10 book. And so he's
Right.
gotten to, get the book because he wanted the book more than the toy. So we saved up, we had another savings goal. He saved up for that. And now we're still working on that $30 toy. It takes a while,
Nice.
especially if you're earning things in quarters, Aiden
Yeah.
loves
Yeah.
his quarters.
It can take a little bit, but that's fun. And he'll appreciate that now and later when he gets older. He's going to look
Mm.
back at those quarters and remember that that was a thing that he had. And that's really cool. How has Time for Learning helped you give your son the individualized education that he needs?
For my son, he is 4. He's an August boy, and for him, and even when he was in public school, last year he did go to public pre-K and in their 3-year-old program, and he was starting to get bored. Like his teacher told me, it's like when Aiden talks in class, it's because he's bored and he wants to talk to his friends versus paying attention, but that's because he already knows it. And with Time for Learning, I get to accelerate his learning. And so he's 4 years old. He's going to be 5 in August. And so he's already doing kindergarten lessons. He actually already finished the kindergarten science, and we're about to start on the first grade science. And so for him, I mean, I don't want to ever hold him back. And I mean, he would be bored if he was in a public school pre-K class, because he would be in pre-K as a 4-year-old. He would be bored to tears because Aiden's already reading. He's working on number bonds and addition and subtraction. And I mean, his learning surpasses his grade level. And so I like Time for Learning because I can accelerate his learning for him.
Perfect. And as a teacher, you know that, once a child is bored, they're completely disengaged. And you have to work so much harder to pull them back in, and that can take up, his time, your time, teacher time. So it's lovely that you really kind of set each of those grade levels. Like you said, going ahead and starting first grade science, if he finishes math before he finishes language arts, or vice versa, knowing that you can change each grade level, each subject by grade level, rather than progressing him to the entirety of first grade. Those are key features that I know I appreciated as a homeschool mom. How has his perception of learning changed since starting Time for Learning? If he had I don't know if, share his perception based on what he knew, if he knew something different prior to being homeschooled.
Well, because I was a teacher at the school Aiden was a student at, I taught him, the name of his school and who his teacher was, and just basic questions that if anyone asked him, then he'd be able to tell them that, I went to so-and-so elementary school. Well, I hadn't asked Aiden that question in a while, especially since we've been homeschooling. And I asked Aiden the other day, where do you go to school at? And he's like, I go to school at home. And I thought that was like the most wonderful homeschool moment, because he realizes that he goes to school at home and he's proud of that. On the other hand, I do have another story about Aiden, and with him being 4, he's extremely candid. And he was telling us, like, Mama, when I went to the real school, and it was like a record screech moment. It's like, Aiden, what you do here at home, that is real school. You went to a school that was brick and mortar and in person, and it had the playground. It was a different sort of school, but going to school at home is a real school too. So I had to explain that in 4-year-old terms, that you still go to a real school, because we're we do our school Monday through Friday, like a traditional school, just to keep up that schedule. And when mom works, that's when we go to school. When mama has a break from work, that's when we have our school breaks. And so, I didn't want him to discount his homeschool experience.
Of course.
Because it is different than the traditional school environment.
So as a teacher, I don't know if you had kind of a perception of homeschooling before you decided to homeschool Aiden.
I did, actually.
Did you? So how has that perception changed now that you've kind of brought him home and you've gotten started at home?
Well, I definitely appreciate homeschool teachers more as a public educator. And I spent previously 10 years in public education. And so I taught early childhood special education, and I taught kindergarten. So we didn't get too many that were homeschooled beforehand. We did have some that would transition in the homeschool, and more my thought was like, good luck, But realizing that the amount of work that a homeschool parent does is very similar to what a public school educator does, except it's just with your own children, like making the curriculum decisions. I love looking at curriculum and seeing what Aiden's going to do next, and all different things. But I really thought it was a little, like, just to be candidly honest, I thought it was a little bit crunchy, and it was a little bit too crunchy for me. I actually had a friend who was going to start homeschooling her child after after, being in public school. And I really thought, that's a little bit crunchy. And I don't think I'd do that. But now with being a homeschool mom, like I love it. And I don't mind where if people think that I'm a little bit crunchy now.
And it's nice to recognize that, it could be on a smaller scale, obviously, an individualized experience, or, families have multiple children, but it's definitely different than classroom scale. But for many, many homeschoolers, the effort is still there.
We'll be homeschooling for a while. I do know that. I thought that COVID would go away and, be like, oh, well, in 2021, it would be different. It's not different yet. My son is immunocompromised and he's at high risk. And so he cannot attend physical school because of having severe persistent asthma. I mean, viruses are his kryptonite. And if he gets a common cold, he feels bad, and it takes him about, 2 to 3 months to recover. And so something as serious as COVID-19, we're not going to take that chance as a little family. So we're not going to do that. And so I feel good about planning for next school year, because the children's vaccine is not available. And even if it happened in mid-year, we're going to finish our homeschool year strong. So if Aiden ever goes back to public school or to a brick and mortar school environment, then we're going to definitely finish our homeschool year out. And and I was like, I've even planned in my mind, like whenever Aiden finishes, and you never know, like Aiden may continue to be a homeschooler until he graduates, but whenever he does, if he makes that transition, I plan on having a little graduation for him and everything.
Nice. So. That was going to be my next question is, do you foresee yourself being kind of, a homeschooler for any length of time, whether that is pandemic related or just seeing the benefits for your situation? So it sounds like you're definitely considering homeschool as a long-term solution.
Yes.
So, that's always exciting. And graduation, that'll be fun. That'll be super exciting. I'll tell you that when my oldest graduated, he graduated in 2017. He had been homeschooled since first grade. He didn't want a party or graduation ceremony, but he's a chef, runs a restaurant now, assistant to running a restaurant now. And he's always been interested in food. So we kind of let him guide us for how can we help you celebrate this milestone, this homeschool graduation. So he chose the city. He chose Nashville. We were from Georgia at the time. And we had a long 5-day weekend, and we ate our way through the city. We ate everything that we could eat in Nashville. And that was so kind of, really important to him. It's something that he has fond memories of. We still talk about it today. We'll say, hey, remember that one time we ate, that thing in Nashville? So you'll come up with something that, that really kind of suits your family. I know another friend from the South that I believe they went to Central Park in New York. So it was, you definitely can kind of make it your own. You can participate in graduation ceremonies. There are many homeschool associations across the United States who hold ceremonies for homeschoolers. They're state associations. So they'll gather once a year to do graduations, proms, really these, again, when things are normal. They do these big group activities for homeschoolers. So it gives them a way to take part in these kind of stereotypical high school moments. So you'll find something. That was my little piece of encouragement. You have a while to plan, but if you do decide to go all the way through, you have so many options to make graduation kind of this really momentous and memorable thing.
I appreciate you letting me know about that. I know next school year, we're definitely going to homeschool. I think we're going to take it school year by school year, depending on what it looks like in the COVID scene and how well the schools are doing with containing the virus in their own, in the school world. And so it's just, it's really just a wait and see. And I'm concerned as a parent and as a former educator of not how the public school is going to see him as a homeschooler, but because his development is not where his age is, I don't want him put into a grade level lower just because of his age, because he's not going to be at the age of his peers in what he needs to be learning. So that's going to be a big factor. Even if he gets to go to a brick and mortar school, it's going to depend on where they place him, because that's going to make a big difference. And if I don't feel like he's getting the education that he needs, it's like, well, we will definitely, turn ourselves back and we will go back to homeschooling, because we know we have that. And so, and I know that he can be accelerated in his learning.
And that's important. And, a lot of things in Aiden's case, he is advanced based on what his age peer group would be learning. But advancing a child comes with its own challenges, because intellectually, they could be ready for multiple grades above where they are, but emotionally, they might not really be. To put a 6-year-old in a classroom full of 9-year-olds, some 6-year-olds adapt very, very well, but some don't. So to have them, you're able to make sure that Aiden is both intellectually and emotionally where he needs to be. And that's something that you can kind of customize as a homeschooler too. So
yes.
Yeah. All right. My last question. What is your number one piece of advice for parents thinking about transitioning to homeschool?
My number one piece of advice is to really just jump into it. And so you may have some hesitations about it, and you may be, looking at different curriculums, and it gets overwhelming, because even as an educator, it gets overwhelming. Like, I love looking at curriculum, but there are so many to choose from. And so my advice is just to pick one, and preferably Time4Learning, because it's a great curriculum, and just to start working on it with your child. And you'll get to see the learning process in your child. When your child goes to public school, you don't get to see them every day. You get to see them every day when they're home, but you don't get to see their learning every day. And it's so much fun to see exactly what they're learning, and being able to tie it into real world activities. And it's a blast. Like, I'm so glad that, I'm not glad that COVID-19 hit, but I'm glad I've had this opportunity to homeschool my son. I would never realize how advanced he was until I started homeschooling him. Like, I knew, like, I had an inkling that he was advanced, but now I really know. It's like, oh, wow. and so,
I love hearing that. So many families have been impacted in not great ways from COVID, of course. I think everyone is impacted on some level, varying degrees, but it's nice to kind of hear, that you were able to kind of embrace that silver lining. You certainly can never say that, let's continue to have this happen, or I can't wait for this to happen again. But like you said, you discovered something phenomenally important about your son, and you were able to really kind of foster his love for learning, because like you said, he's not bored. He's not on at a pace of other students who are not as accelerated as he is. And so, it's nice to have that, have those moments. And whether he stays homeschool or you go back to school, you're always going to have that, this time period to say, this is what I did for him. We got to do this together. And I think that's really, really nice. So, thank you so much, Jenna. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about your experience? Sometimes I don't think of all questions, so feel free to just chime in.
Well, I've really enjoyed homeschooling Aiden. Like I've said before, it was a must for our family because of the recommendations from his pediatric pulmonologist. He could, her recommendation was for him to not attend in-person school. So we had to do something. And when the public school district failed us, I didn't fail my son. And so that's the biggest thing that I want my son to remember from the whole experience, is that mama did not fail you with your education. We kept rolling, even though the public school quit on us. And it's sad to say that. It still hurts that the public school didn't want to educate my child because he was medically unable to attend school in person. And so, but you know what? Mama didn't quit on him. He had a strong curriculum with Time4Learning, and it's all worked well.
I love that. Thank you so much. I wish you the best. I know that your continued journey is going to be exciting. So, thank you again for taking the time out of your day to chat with us.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks. That's it for today's episode. If you're interested in learning more about our homeschooling program, please visit time4learning.com or email me at the address on the screen. We're happy to connect you with a wealth of information like videos, resources, and blog articles. Until next time.